Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And whenever a new season of The Dragon Prince arrives, that world feels a lot richer by default. I hope I've made clear in previous videos just how much I love this show. It's also one of those shows that has come a long way since the first 3 seasons, and not just because of the evolution of the characters, the conflicts, and the various subplots. The Dragon Prince is just one of those shows that always seems to have a lot working against it, be it a global pandemic, issues with early animation, a writer's strike, and uncertainty over whether Netflix will allow it to continue. But after 5 seasons, I think the show has done plenty to establish a solid fanbase. And with the release of season 6, I think those same fans are going to be hungry to see more from this fanciful world. Now, there's a lot that happened in season 6, and a great deal of its biggest moments felt like a continuation of what transpired in season 5. I could probably make multiple videos focusing on certain subplots, but for now, I'll keep things general. Because if Season 5 was about setting the stage for the next big conflict in Xadia, Season 6 was about the first shots being fired, but not in a way anyone expected. Now before I start reacting and speculating, please note that I'll be touching on some major spoilers for Season 6, as well as Season 5. So, if you haven't seen either, here's your chance to click away. I certainly encourage everyone to watch each season of The Dragon Prince unspoiled, because it's one of those shows that works because it perfectly navigates multiple forms of drama. Whereas Season 5 revolved more around uncovering the mysteries surrounding Aaravos, Season 6 primarily focused on the consequences for preventing or delaying his release. It's very much an extension of the themes from earlier seasons. Any worthwhile effort, whether noble or malicious, always comes at a price. And whenever dark magic is involved, the price is considerably higher. Callum was just starting to feel that at the end of Season 5, having used dark magic to save Rayla. But Claudia has already been deeply affected by it, not to mention permanently scarred. She actually lost part of her leg fighting Callum and Rayla, and when Season 6 begins, she loses even more when her father, Lord Viren, decides to leave her. It makes for one of the most dramatic moments in the show to date. So much of Claudia's journey since Season 4 revolves around her trying to save her father. And much like Lord Viren, she was willing to cross lines and use dark magic, despite seeing firsthand what it did to her father. And even though she eventually succeeded, she paid a very high price for it. It marked an incredible low point for Claudia, and in the first few episodes of Season 6, there's this sense that she's on the brink of descending completely into the kind of pure evil mindset that we saw in Viren back in Season 3. Now thankfully, Terry is still there for her. The way he supports her, despite what she's done, that sends a powerful message. It also keeps Claudia from falling too far into the darkness, but there's still a sense that she's hanging by the thinnest of threads. By contrast, Lord Viren's arc in Season 6 takes a different kind of dramatic turn. After falling so far in the first 3 seasons, and coming close to falling again in the last 2 seasons, he's finally making the right choices for the right reasons. He fully acknowledges that using dark magic led to consequences that he could not bear. At one point, we even get some heartbreaking insights into Viren's early life. We learn more about his wife, how he raised his children, and how their family dynamic became so tenuous. I won't spoil every detail, but it really was genuinely heartbreaking to see it play out. It also firmly establishes that, as far as Viren has fallen in the past, he is at heart a good man trying to do right by his family. His intentions, even when he's resorting to dark magic, are almost always good. Whether he's trying to save his son from a horrible illness, or helping King Harrow escape assassination, he really is trying to confront an impossible situation with a viable solution. It's a drive that Claudia admires and sadly inherited. But unlike Claudia, Viren actually goes out of his way to face the consequences of his actions. He willingly travels back to Katalis at one point, confronts those he manipulated and exploited, and surrenders himself to justice. It is an admirable act of contrition, but it's also framed as being far too late for him. Soren's unwillingness to even talk to his father while he's in prison makes that painfully clear. And given how Viren's story eventually plays out, which again I won't spoil, it really is tragic. But it helps further compound the tension within Claudia, because even after her father abandons her, she's still determined to finish what she started. And that involves freeing Aaravos as she promised, hoping he can still deliver even if her father is completely against it. But that same effort is further complicated by what happens with Callum and Rayla in Season 6. While the romantic subplot got plenty of scrutiny in the last 2 seasons, it feels a lot more balanced now. The show even kind of pokes fun at how big a driving force their romance has become with this show, and it's not in an overly subtle way. Now, I freely admit that I am an unapologetic romantic, and the Callum and Rayla romance is one of my favorite parts of this show. I'll even go on record as saying I'm very much on board with this ship, but I also don't deny that this ship often overshadows and complicates other important subplots within the show. And on that front, I think Season 6 did a great job of helping the Callum and Rayla romance progress. They do share a lot more romantic moments than the previous 2 seasons, but those moments are still somewhat secondary to the larger goal of preventing Aaravos from being released, as well as saving Rayla's loved ones from their magical imprisonment. And like the plot with Claudia, a big driving force for that development involves dark magic. Callum spends much of the season obsessing and lamenting over the impact it had on him. He's constantly having nightmares, dreading that Aaravos will influence him the same way he did Viren. And much like Viren, his use of dark magic was often justified by saving his loved ones. Even so, this bothers Rayla a great deal. She even makes him promise that if he ever faces a choice between the greater good and using dark magic, he'll choose the greater good. But this already feels like a promise that Callum might not be able to keep. Because while he's dealing with all this dread, he's also trying to seek a more complete solution towards dealing with Aaravos. They have the magical pearl where he's been imprisoned, and in his paranoia, Callum believes that the only way to end the threat of Aaravos is to destroy it, ideally without releasing him. This leads him and Rayla to journey to the Starscraper to visit the Celestial Elves. While this journey does help uncover plenty of insights with respect to Aaravos' magic and fate, they ultimately encounter even more complications with respect to stopping Aaravos. However, they do make progress in finding a way to free Rayla's family. That has actually been a lingering plot since Season 2, and it leads to some of Rayla's best moments in quite some time. It also sets the stage for even more drama between her and Callum. It's sure to be quite awkward when they find out that she, a Moonshadow Elf, is in love with a human, who also happens to be the stepson of the king they assassinated. While we don't get nearly enough moments with Rayla and her family, I will spoil that Season 6 further reinforced the depths of her and Callum's romance. There are multiple moments in which they acknowledge how hard it was for them when Rayla left for 2 years. They even acknowledge that they didn't handle their reunion as well as they could have. But keep in mind, these two are still teenagers. We certainly shouldn't expect teenagers to deal with these sorts of complex emotions in an overly mature way. But it doesn't prevent their romance from really blossoming. And as sweet as it is to see, it also has me feeling a bit nervous. Because for multiple seasons now, Callum has been dreading the prospect of falling under the influence of dark magic. And after the events of Season 6, the margin for error is even smaller. There's a clear sense by the end that he's only got one strike left. And if ever there comes a situation where he has to choose between saving Rayla and avoiding the pitfalls of dark magic, well, I think it's clear what he's going to ultimately choose. Now, that's certainly worth keeping an eye on in future seasons, but in terms of the most consequential plot of Season 6, that title belongs to the Sunfire Elves. The aftermath of the Battle of Stormspire in Season 3 has been a lingering problem. But until this season, it was probably the least interesting subplot of the show. Yes, their plot matters a great deal, especially with Queen Janai being in love with General Amaya. Their romantic subplot was a major focus in Season 5, but the escalating tension within the Sunfire Elves, who do have a valid reason for not trusting humans, that plot has been slow to develop. But that really changed in Season 6. The consequences of Queen Janai's decisions finally caught up with her and the rest of the Sunfire Elves. Letting her brother Kareem go, despite his treachery, and not doing enough to address the simmering tension between her people and humanity, it resulted in a tragedy that's likely to be framed as an atrocity. While Claudia, Viren, and Aaravos have been the main antagonists throughout this show, Kareem ended up being more impactful than anyone else in Season 6. In the past, he simply came off as a staunch traditionalist who just didn't want to see the Sunfire Elves change their ways, nor did he want to see them consorting with humans. But even though he had plenty of supporters on his side, he never crossed too many lines until he made a deal with Sol Regem. This dragon, who first showed up in Season 3, is probably the most dangerous dragon in the show. He's shown no inclination to have any mercy whatsoever towards humans, even when they're trying to help him. And when Kareem thinks that this makes them natural allies, he ends up being sorely mistaken. Because Sol Regem doesn't care for allies, once he has what he wants, he has no problem going back on his word. That proves to be a major misstep by Kareem. It also sets the stage for what is likely to be a major turning point for the show. Because Sol Regem, after being healed by the Sunfire Elves, lays waste to Katalis. There are no politics this time, there are no armies, and there's no real complexity. Sol Regem just attacks the city and every innocent human within it. It makes for some powerful but tragic visuals. It also gives Soren one of his best moments in the show. And in terms of the bigger picture, this destructive act completely changes the dynamics we have seen play out since Season 4. All those efforts towards peace and love, which have been a common refrain from King Ezran, it's all just destroyed in the span of a day, literally and figuratively. It leaves everyone reeling. It also promises to further deepen the tensions between human and elves even more, especially given Kareem's role in it. It was very much a slow build towards a moment like this. At times it felt too slow, especially early on in Season 6. But the way it played out left a hell of an impact, the likes of which we haven't seen in The Dragon Prince since the end of Season 3. And after the last episode, there's a sense that this isn't just a major turning point for every character, plot, and subplot. It's a point of no return. Because if there's one detail I don't mind spoiling, it's the impact of Aaravos finally breaking free. He's been this looming presence for multiple seasons, and until now, he's only been able to manipulate things from the shadows. Now, he doesn't have to be in the shadows anymore. He's free from his prison, arriving just in time for humans and elves to have every possible reason to hate one another. We even get some critical insights into Aaravos' backstory and why he's doing all this. Like so many other characters, it revolves around doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. But in Aaravos' case, it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. Everyone, human, elf, dragon, and everyone in between, they're going to be affected by what he does. And unfortunately, we'll have to wait until Season 7 to see how that plays out. And if there is one major criticism I have of Season 6 of The Dragon Prince, it's that. The season just felt too damn short. It also felt like it ended way too abruptly, like it was still in the middle of the second act when the final credits rolled. I admit that was a very frustrating moment, and with no timeline for when the next season will come out, the wait for Season 7 is sure to be agonizing. But so far, every new season of The Dragon Prince to date has been worth the wait, and I have high hopes that this trend will continue, bringing plenty more drama, heart, and heartache along the way. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay safe.